Before we get into the video, could everyone please subscribe to my Endless Diary Tales channel? Thank you so much. My younger sister and I were both reborn. This time she gave me her gloomy, possessive, wealthy husband and chose instead to marry into the bankrupt family herself. Big sis, she said with a smirk. This time, it's your turn to taste what it's like living with a psycho. Later that man kept pulling me into his arms, murmuring softly, "Baby, please love me a little more." Wait a second. He gives me $3 million a month. So what if he's a little possessive? What's so wrong about that? When I opened my eyes again, I heard my younger sister Emily throwing a fit, shouting that she wanted to marry into the Carter family. I instantly realized she had been reborn too. My parents' expressions changed immediately. They had always favored Emily since we were little. Even though I was only a year older, I always had to give in to her. The Carter family just went bankrupt, my father said sternly. Whoever marries into that house will only suffer. Let your sister go instead. She's older and surely knows better. When my parents refused, Emily burst into tears, screaming and threatening to starve herself until they agreed. In the end, my parents couldn't stand it and gave in. Mom turned to me, her tone cold and detached. You should remember to thank your sister for this later. I silently nodded. Thank her for something she didn't even want. As she passed by me, Emily leaned close and whispered, "Big sis, this time it's your turn to live with a freak." I smiled faintly. Did she really think life in the Carter family would be easy now that they'd fallen from grace? Having no money is the root of all misery. In our previous life, when faced with the same choice, Emily didn't hesitate to pick the Turner family. She dreamed of a blissful life as a rich man's wife. "Big sis," she had said back then, "I'll leave the Carter family's mess for you to clean up." But little did she know the Turner family's heir, Ethan Turner, was a dark, possessive man. On their wedding day, he warned her not to have any foolish thoughts and ordered her to stay home obediently as Mrs. Turner. Later, she was discovered harming herself in his study. When Ethan found out, Emily panicked and tried to run away, but his bodyguards caught her and locked her inside the house. Eventually, she couldn't stand it any longer and secretly ran away with another man. Ethan found her. They divorced, and Emily's reputation was completely ruined. As for me, with my husband Lucas Carter by my side, I started from nothing and became a successful businesswoman. Lucas often said, "A modern woman should create her own value instead of relying on a man. As long as Lily agrees, I'll always quietly support her." Because of those words, Lucas Carter was praised among high society as the model husband of the new era, while I became someone admired by countless wealthy wives. But those peaceful days didn't last long. During a family gathering, Emily asked me to meet her in her room. Then she set the place on fire, dragging me with her to die. In the final moments of my life, she clung to my legs, her face twisted with hatred. "Lily," she screamed, "I've always been better than you at everything. Why are you the one living better now? Even if I die, I'll take you with me." Even now, whenever I recall the searing pain of those flames, I still tremble in this life. Seeing Emily's determined look, so desperate to win, I could only shake my head helplessly. Without me, how could the Carter family possibly rise again? My wedding was held one day before Emily's. Lately, she'd been constantly bragging to me about how well Ethan Turner treated her, how caring and attentive he was every single day. Meanwhile, Lucas Carter still hadn't come to visit me even once. Every time I heard those words, I couldn't help but laugh. The Carter family had gone bankrupt. What else could he do besides treat her well? Men are like that. When they want to be good to you, you're their moon in the sky. When they don't, you're nothing but dust beneath their feet. At least the Turner family was practical. Within just a few days, they sent over an enormous amount of betrothal gifts. Because I insisted, my parents reluctantly agreed to merge part of those gifts into my dowry. The marriage with the Turner family had been something our family actively sought out to strengthen our business connections. But the engagement with the Carter family had been arranged long ago, back when the Carters hadn't gone bankrupt yet, and we were considered a good match. Now that the Carter family had fallen, my father didn't want outsiders to accuse us of being greedy for wealth and scorning the poor. So he clenched his teeth and decided to uphold the engagement. On my wedding day, I finally met Ethan Turner. He had sharp features, a tall, straight nose, and thin gold-rimmed glasses that reflected the light. His whole demeanor was cold and distant, completely unlike the kind of man who would ever harm himself. When the officiant announced that the groom could kiss the bride, I instinctively stepped back, but Ethan's arm suddenly tightened around my waist, pulling me firmly against his chest before pressing a cold kiss onto my lips. That night he sat on the sofa, his tie loose around his collar, the top 2 buttons of his shirt undone, revealing his toned chest. It was then I finally caught a glimpse of the possessive aura people had spoken about. Suddenly, Ethan reached out, gripped my chin and leaned in, his deep eyes fixed on mine. "This marriage was something your family begged for," he said in a low, steady voice. "Now that we're married, you'd better get rid of any thoughts you shouldn't have. I'll transfer $3 million to you every month. All you need to do is play the role of Mrs. Turner in front of others. Besides that, you don't have to do anything. I don't like people touching what's mine if you don't listen to me." He paused, his voice dropping lower. "I can't promise what I'll do." Before he could finish, I grabbed his tie and pulled him down toward me, kissing him first. From the moment he sat down, my eyes had been wandering to the outline of his chest under that half-open shirt. As he bent toward me, his firm muscles and defined abs were right in front of my face. How could anyone look at that and not be tempted? After a while I let go of him. The tips of his ears had turned crimson. My fingers couldn't resist tracing the lines of his abs as I leaned in close, my breath brushing his ear. "You've got a pretty good body, hubby," I whispered. "Since we're done talking, shouldn't we move on to the next step?" Ethan's body trembled slightly. What are you doing?" I raised a brow. "I'm exercising my rights as a wife. Is that not allowed?" Sensing the teasing in my tone, Ethan gave a short, dark laugh. In the next instant, he took off his glasses and kissed me back fiercely, possessive, burning, leaving no room for refusal. I felt my whole body melt under his touch. When I finally drifted off from exhaustion, I had to admit the physical difference between men and women. While I was completely drained, he still seemed tireless. By the time I woke up the next day, the sun had already begun to set. On the bedside table was a small jar of ointment. Ethan must have prepared it for me. At least he still had some conscience left. After washing up, I was about to go downstairs for dinner when the butler handed me a supplementary bank card under Ethan's name. "Mr. Turner said, 'You can buy whatever you like, ma'am.' I happily accepted it. The feeling of not having to wake up early to negotiate business deals or flatter investors, yet still having money to spend, was incredible. In my previous life, after marrying Lucas Carter, I had to move into a rundown apartment. They told me to be frugal and hardworking while they themselves spent lavishly. It didn't take long before the dowry I brought with me was completely squandered. I glanced at the clock just then. Emily must have officially married into the Carter family by now. Earlier, my parents had told me not to attend her wedding. I wondered what she was feeling at that moment, facing a household full of wolves in human skin. Thinking of that, I felt even more determined to win Ethan Turner over and take good care of my walking ATM. In the days that followed, whenever Ethan ate, I picked food for him. When he was tired, I massaged his shoulders. When he wanted a bath, I hurried to prepare hot water. At first, Ethan was clearly not used to it. "You don't have to. I can do these things myself," he said flatly. "Of course not," I replied. "Didn't you tell me to fulfill my duties as Mrs. Turner? A husband works hard to earn money, so a wife should take care of him properly. Honestly, taking that much money without doing anything makes me feel guilty." He didn't answer, his expression still cold, but I caught the faint curve at the corner of his lips. I also started bringing lunch to his office. From my past life as a businesswoman, I understood why 9 out of 10 CEOs suffered from stomach problems because they were always too busy to eat properly. One time in Ethan's office, I saw his secretary, a woman in a low-cut blouse, staring at him with eyes practically dripping with desire. During lunch, I casually said, "Your secretary is quite pretty, and she's got a great figure too." Ethan immediately understood, not even glancing at me. His tone was calm but firm. "Don't be ridiculous." I rolled my eyes at him in secret, but the next time I visited his company, I noticed that his secretary had been replaced by a man. Rumor had it that the woman had been transferred to assist another executive. Well, he might act cold, but deep down he's clearly soft-hearted. I thought the relationship between us was gradually improving. But one day he suddenly started avoiding me. Every night, he claimed to be busy with work and slept in his study. We used to have breakfast together in the mornings, but now we barely saw each other. Even a fool could tell he was intentionally keeping his distance. I planned to wait for him at home that day to ask what was going on. But before I could, I received a message from a friend inviting me out for afternoon tea. When I arrived, I realized Emily was there too. She always wore dazzling jewelry, but today she had none on. Even her handbag was an outdated model from last year. It seemed she'd spent quite a lot after marrying into the Carter family. Still, she smiled brightly as ever. But when her eyes fell on me, dressed head to toe in limited editions, her expression briefly shifted before she quickly recovered. When someone asked her when she planned to have a baby, Emily smiled, though the smile faltered for a moment. My husband said, "There's no rush. He doesn't want me to become a mother too young, so maybe in a few years." Everyone immediately praised Lucas Carter as a rare and considerate husband. Seeing her forced smile, I could tell Emily had begun to realize the truth. Lucas wasn't in any hurry now, but soon enough the one who'd be anxious would be her. Noticing the smirk I couldn't quite hide, Emily shot me a hateful look. Her gaze then landed on the faint red mark on my wrist, and a proud smile appeared on her lips. "Oh my, what happened to your hand, sis? I heard Ethan Turner has a bit of a temper. Don't tell me he hit you." I glanced down at my wrist. It was Ethan who left that mark, but not because he hit me. He tied my wrists with his tie. Ethan could be like a wild animal sometimes. Just thinking about that moment made my cheeks heat up. But the others at the table misread my silence, thinking I was upset, and Emily's smirk only deepened. "Marriage without love is really pitiful, isn't it?" she said sweetly, her words dripping with mock sympathy. When the gathering ended, Lucas Carter drove up to pick Emily up himself, earning her another round of admiration from everyone present. I had already called for our driver to come get me. But to my surprise, the one who showed up was Ethan. Before I could even step out of the cafe, I saw Ethan sitting in the car waiting for me. The moment our eyes met, I instinctively quickened my pace. Suddenly, Emily stuck her foot out and tripped me. I almost fell, but a quick-handed waiter caught me just in time. "Thank you," I said, catching my breath as I looked up, only to see Ethan already out of the car. His eyes were cold and sharp, fixed on the waiter's hand that was still resting on my shoulder. Ethan strode over, checking me up and down to see if I was hurt. Then without a word, he grabbed my hand and pulled me away. His imposing presence was so strong that no one dared say a thing. People just stared at me with pity while Emily slowly mouthed something at me. I didn't need to hear the words to know what she said. "Good luck, sis." In the car, Ethan didn't say a word. I sat quietly beside him the entire ride, glancing at him from time to time. Gradually, the tension in his face softened and his usual intimidating aura faded. I couldn't believe it. He'd managed to calm himself down. When we got home, Ethan was about to head into his study, but I couldn't help calling out, "Aren't you sleeping in our room tonight?" He turned back, and the look in his eyes was unmistakably adult. We both understood what that meant. He walked toward me, grabbed me by the waist, and pulled me into his arms, his lips curved into a faint, dangerous smile. Sickly possessive, yet irresistibly attractive. "Are you scared of me?" he murmured. I arched a brow and kissed the hollow of his throat. "What's there to be scared of? Let's try something different tonight." Ethan froze for a moment. The restraint in his eyes vanished. "Lily," he whispered, his voice low and rough, "don't you dare tell me to stop later." Then his hand slowly traced up my shoulder. "That guy earlier. Did he touch you here or was it here?" His voice turned icy, so he wanted payback. Before I could even respond, Ethan bit down on my shoulder hard enough to make me gasp. I couldn't hold back the small sound that escaped me, but he silenced me with a deep, consuming kiss. That kiss felt like a spell, drawing me in until I lost myself completely. All I could do was hold on to him tighter. In the middle of the night, I felt someone's hand gently caressing my cheek. "Lily," Ethan's husky voice murmured. "You were the one who seduced me first. I won't hold back anymore. From now on, don't even think about escaping me." After that night, Ethan started spending more time at home. He stopped sleeping in his study and instead held me close every night. In my previous life, Emily had once mentioned that Ethan's study was filled with tools for self-harm. I could only hope that in this life he'd stay far away from that place. Sometimes when he was asleep he would unconsciously bury his face in my chest, nuzzling softly while murmuring, "Honey, please love me a little more." It was a completely different side of him. Nothing like the cold, controlled man he was by day. Old Mr. Chan, the butler, once told me that Ethan used to rely on heavy sleeping pills every night just to rest. But ever since he'd been with me, he hadn't touched them once. The thought made me truly happy. I was finally able to help him heal. When Ethan went to work, I kept myself busy too. Using my knowledge from my previous life, I invested part of the money Ethan had given me along with the dowry I brought from the Grant family into several promising funds and stocks. In just a short time, I had already earned a considerable profit. Now I was truly living like a proper rich wife. As for being a strong, independent woman, this time all I wanted was to be a wealthy, comfortable lady. The world always has too many definitions and expectations for women. Whether you're a career-driven leader or a homemaker, no woman should be trapped by any mold. As long as I wanted to, I could be anything I chose. Later, when I returned to my family home to collect some of my old belongings, I happened to overhear my mother on the phone with Emily. From their conversation, I found out that Emily was borrowing money, quite a large sum too. Since my mother couldn't possibly afford that amount, Emily was pressuring her to take out a loan, claiming she needed startup capital for a new business venture. If even our mother couldn't help her, she said she'd rather die than not get the money. So, in the end, my mother agreed. Hearing that, I lost all interest and turned to leave. In my previous life, Lucas Carter had also asked me to borrow money from home to help with his business, and I refused. Temporary help could never create lasting stability. To live a good life, the most important thing is to stand on your own 2 feet. Back then, I started from small shops, doing everything myself because I couldn't afford to hire anyone. Every investment I made came from long nights of drinking and smiling, just to win people over. And Lucas, he just sat around at home pretending to be busy while smoking, drinking, and gambling, thinking that was enough. Emily believed that as long as she had enough money, she'd be free. She'd become one of those powerful women everyone admired. But she didn't realize that true freedom doesn't really exist in this world. The only way to break free from chains is to rely on your own strength. I didn't expect her to be facing so many problems in her husband's family. Yet, she still somehow found the time to spread trouble about me. Before long, people started whispering that Ethan Turner was a pervert and that I was being abused by him. They said the bruises on my body were proof that he had been beating me. When I sent someone to look into it, it turned out the rumors came straight from my dear little sister. The marks on my body really were from Ethan, but not because he hit me. Still, how could I possibly explain the real reason behind each one of them? That night, angry and embarrassed, I bit Ethan on the shoulder. "Can you be a little gentler?" I snapped. "Do you even know what people are saying about us out there right now?" Ethan paused, a faint self-mocking smile on his lips. "Maybe I really am a pervert," he murmured. Then he tightened his arms around me, his voice low. "If I am one, would you stop wanting me?" There was a flicker of fear in his tone, so subtle that most wouldn't have caught it. I lifted my head and kissed him softly. "Of course not," I said. "Everyone has their issues these days. I have mine too, so let's not judge each other, okay?" In those days, I could feel his care for me growing deeper. Whatever I wanted, Ethan would do his best to give. For someone like me who had never truly felt loved, it was the first time I'd ever experienced what it meant to be cherished. I couldn't deny it anymore. I had fallen for him too. When I said that, Ethan exhaled in relief, smiling slightly, as if all the fears that had haunted him for years had finally faded. To me, they were just small human flaws that everyone carried. Out of concern for him, I wanted to understand more about his past. Ethan's body was covered with faint scars and scratches, some old, some newer, and even his wrists bore the traces of self-inflicted wounds. Once I asked him where those marks had come from. He didn't want to answer. Whenever I tried to press him, he would silence me with a deep, consuming kiss. Eventually, I learned the truth from Mr. Chan, the family's longtime butler. There were many things about the Turner family that only he knew. He told me that when Ethan was 10 years old, He had been kidnapped by human traffickers. At that time, his parents searched everywhere but couldn't find him. In the end, they gave up and adopted a boy from an orphanage, naming him Tyler. 3 years later, Ethan suddenly came back on his own. His body was covered in blood and mud, his eyes empty, his hair dirty and matted. The servants thought he was a beggar and even hit him with a broom. It was Mr. Chun who recognized him and rushed him to the hospital. Ethan's parents were at that moment attending a parent-teacher meeting for Tyler. When they found out Ethan had returned, they didn't immediately rush to the hospital to see their son. Instead, they went to comfort Tyler. They told him that even though his older brother had come back, it wouldn't change his place in their hearts, that he would always be their most outstanding child. Ethan had heard every single word from his hospital bed. After that, after Ethan came back, he was no longer the bright, lively boy he once was. Instead, he became withdrawn and insecure. No one ever knew what he went through during those 3 lost years. When his parents finally realized he wasn't the same, they didn't comfort him or try to understand. Instead, they lectured him for changing, for not being close to them anymore, for not being as charming and well-liked as Tyler, the boy they had adopted in his absence. Eventually, they poured all their affection into Tyler. In school, Tyler would lead his classmates in mocking Ethan. Whenever Ethan stayed quiet, they bullied him more, making everyone believe he was the adopted one, and that Tyler was the real heir of the Turner family. In the end, Ethan couldn't take it anymore. He fought back, beating every one of his bullies, including Tyler, whose head was split open in the scuffle. Mrs. Turner didn't bother asking what had happened. She slapped Ethan hard across the face in front of everyone. From that moment on, everyone assumed Ethan was at fault. No one dared to befriend him anymore, but no one dared to bully him either. As Mr. Chun told me this story, his voice broke and tears welled up in his eyes. "I watched young master grow up," he said hoarsely. "No one knows the pain he's carried inside all these years. So when he decided to leave the Turner family, I followed him without hesitation. I just couldn't bear the thought of him being alone again without anyone who truly cared." I gently patted Mr. Chen's back, comforting him. I promised that I would take good care of Ethan. As for parents like the Turners, there was nothing left to pity. From that day forward, whatever happened to them no longer had anything to do with me. But I didn't expect that only a short while later, Mrs. Turner would call. Ethan and I were having dinner when he picked up the phone. She wanted us to come home the next evening, saying there was something important they needed to discuss. Ethan clearly didn't want to go, but since they insisted, we eventually agreed. When we arrived, 3 people were already sitting on the sofa, chatting and laughing. The moment they saw us, the smiles on Mr. and Mrs. Turner's faces faded. Only Tyler stayed the same, cheerful, polite, and overly enthusiastic. He greeted me warmly, complimenting how much more beautiful I looked compared to our wedding day. I gave him a polite smile and nodded. After a few minutes of small talk, I understood what kind of person Tyler was. His words were smooth and sweet, but his eyes were full of calculation and deceit. It was clear he was trying to charm me, hoping I'd side with him instead of Ethan. He even accidentally revealed the scar on his forehead a few times, hinting that Ethan had a violent temper and might even hit me. So, it turned out green tea boys existed too. It wasn't just the girls. I smiled faintly. "That's funny," I said softly. "My husband only hits people who actually deserve it." The room went silent. Tyler's smile froze on his face, his expression awkward. He excused himself and didn't say another word to me for the rest of the evening. Meanwhile, Mr. Turner and Ethan were talking about the company. Suddenly, Mr. Turner changed the subject. "Your brother just graduated from college this year," he said. "You should start preparing the paperwork to transfer your position to him. After that, you can just support him from behind the scenes." The Turner Group had been an ordinary mid-size company just a few years ago. It was because of Ethan's hard work that it had become what it was today, a respected, thriving corporation. Ethan let out a cold laugh. "And on what basis should I do that?" Mr. Turner slammed his palm on the table. "On the basis that I'm your father. I built this company from the ground up. I'll hand it to whoever I want." Ethan's gaze hardened. "Then go ahead," he said quietly. "Let's see whether the board listens to you or to me." Mrs. Turner's face turned purple with rage. She stormed over and slapped Ethan across the face. How could I have raised such an ungrateful son? How dare you talk to your parents that way? If I had known you'd turn out like this, I would have rather left you to die out there than bring you back home. Ethan turned his head slightly to the side, saying nothing, his fists clenched tight. We didn't bother finishing dinner. He just grabbed my hand and led me straight out. In the car, he stayed completely silent. I was still thinking about how to comfort him when he suddenly slammed the brakes and pulled over by the curb. I'm going to buy something. Wait here in the car, he said curtly, not even giving me a chance to respond before getting out. I waited for a long time, but Ethan still hadn't returned. Anxiety started to creep in, and I finally decided to go look for him. I walked quite a distance but couldn't find him anywhere. Just as I was about to head back, a group of street thugs suddenly blocked my way. Well, look at what we've got here, one of them sneered. A pretty little thing wandering around all alone this late. Why don't you come hang out with us for a bit? I forced myself to stay calm. None of your business, I said coldly. The one in front smirked and reached out to grab my shoulder. Oh, come on, sweetheart. Don't be scared. We'll make sure you have a good time. I dodged to the side and stepped back, warning them. If you don't leave, I'll call the police. They didn't seem the least bit intimidated. The more I backed away, the closer they came until my back hit a wall. I had nowhere left to run. They were still closing in, so I tightened my grip on the self-defense tool in my bag, ready to fight back if they got any closer. But before any of them could reach me, the leader was suddenly yanked backward by the hair and slammed headfirst into the wall with a sickening thud. Blood immediately trickled down his face as he screamed in pain. I looked up and there was Ethan. His eyes were bloodshot, blazing with fury. Before the others could react, he pinned them to the ground and started beating them mercilessly. His nails were streaked with blood by the time the gang scrambled to their feet and fled in terror. Ethan turned to me, a faint twisted smirk curling his lips. Scared? He asked, then pulled me tightly into his arms. Even if you are, I won't let you go. You'll be mine for the rest of your life. I steadied my breath and wrapped my arms around him. I'm not scared, I whispered. But since you've already beaten them up, you can't ever hit me. Okay. Ethan paused, then buried his face in my neck and let out a soft, broken laugh. You're such an idiot, he murmured. Right then my stomach let out a loud growl. I hadn't eaten dinner yet, after all. Ethan's mood had clearly improved, and he took my hand, leading me to a nearby restaurant for something warm to eat. That was when I noticed new cuts on his hands. Only then did I realize he hadn't left earlier to buy anything. He'd left to hide from me and hurt himself. Ethan didn't want me to see him in such a broken state. He didn't want to die anymore, but he still couldn't control the pain inside him. Whenever it got too much, he turned that pain inward. He carried a small knife on him just to hurt himself when the urges came. His psychiatrist had told him it was a severe form of self-loathing buried deep in his mind. I took the knife from him and told him, next time you feel like this, don't shut me out. We'll face it together. Ethan agreed quietly. After that, Mr. and Mrs. Turner called several more times, wanting us to visit, but we refused every time. Not long after, my parents suddenly showed up uninvited, this time bringing Emily with them. They claimed they'd heard I was being abused and came out of concern to check on me. I almost laughed. If they truly cared, why didn't they come the moment they heard those rumors? Sure enough, after a few polite exchanges, their real motives slipped out. Emily wanted to borrow money from me. Judging by the timing, the Carter family had probably burned through all her wealth by now. They were leeching off her completely. The fact that she'd come to me only proved she was desperate with nowhere left to turn. Of course, she didn't admit any of that. She just smiled sweetly and said, my business is expanding fast, so I need some extra capital. I was hoping you could lend me a bit. Of course, I refused to lend her the money. Emily's face immediately darkened. You have so much money, there's no way you can spend it all. Your husband won't even let you go out alone, so why not lend me some? I'll pay you back once I become a successful businesswoman. Don't say I didn't warn you. If your husband ever loses control, you'll have no one but your family to rely on. Are you sure you want to ruin our relationship over this? I let out a cold laugh. Ruin our relationship? Do you even still have one to ruin? I thought you'd lost all sense of dignity a long time ago. Emily's face turned red with fury. She pointed at me, trembling, but no words came out. My father's expression grew dark. Lily, are you really going to talk to your parents like that? I'm sorry, I said quietly, but I stopped listening to you a long time ago. My father raised his hand as if to slap me, but the bodyguard stepped in and blocked him. I immediately ordered the guards to escort the three of them out. Emily tried to curse me from the doorway, but my parents, too embarrassed, pulled her away. That was the first time in my life I had ever gone against my parents' will. From the moment I was born, I'd been taught to obey, to yield, to avoid conflict. But now I finally understood. Submission never earns respect. It only invites more cruelty. Ethan came up from behind and wrapped his arms around me. He must have heard everything from upstairs. They made you angry, didn't they? He said softly. Want me to deal with them for you? I shook my head. No need. People like that. Karma will take care of them eventually. Later, my mother called again just to scold me. She shouted that if I didn't help Emily, she would cut me off and never acknowledge me as her daughter again. Then do it, I said simply and hung up. After that, I blocked her number. Not long after, I ran into Emily again at a party. She looked unusually cheerful, and her smile widened the moment she saw me. Sister, she said smugly, did you really think that without your help I wouldn't make it? This time my husband got an investment from Mr. Xiao himself. The Carter family will be back on its feet in no time. I didn't respond. I just turned my gaze toward Lucas Carter, who was standing proudly beside her. Mr. Xiao, huh? That's your doing. Lucas couldn't hide the smug look on his face, though he tried to sound humble. Helping Emily is the least I can do. I'll always be there for her. I smirked. Some people pretend for so long they actually start believing their own lies. Lucas's face stiffened. He quickly grabbed Emily's arm. Mr. Zhao's over there. Let's go thank him properly. Before leaving, Emily shot me a mocking glance and whispered, anything you can do, I can do too. I had also received an investment from Mr. Xiao in my previous life, but back then I already knew what kind of man Lucas Carter was. There was no way he had the ability to secure that deal on his own. I had been wary then, and for good reason. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Sometimes the price one pays is something they can never afford. Ethan walked over and gently took my hand, his eyes full of concern. What's wrong? He asked. I smiled and shook my head. Nothing. This is all Emily's choice. I just need to keep walking my own path. The party lasted late into the night. Nearly everyone decided to stay at the hotel, and so did we. The next morning, as I was heading downstairs for breakfast, I passed by another room and froze when I heard familiar voices. It was Emily and Lucas. You bastard! Emily's voice trembled with rage. To get that investment, you made me entertain Mr. Zhao. You couldn't do it yourself, so you handed your wife over instead. You're disgusting. A loud smack followed as she slapped him hard. Lucas didn't hesitate. He struck her back, sending her sprawling onto the floor. And what did you think? He hissed. You think he'd invest in you because of your talent? You couldn't even borrow money anywhere else. I had no other choice. So don't make a scene. They've got plenty of pictures of you, and if this gets out, even I won't be able to save you. With that, Lucas straightened his jacket and walked out, leaving Emily collapsed on the floor, her face pale and filled with despair. She looked up and upon seeing me, rushed forward in fury, trying to grab me. You knew, didn't you? You knew all along. Why didn't you tell me? I sidestepped her attack, keeping my tone calm. Because it was your choice, wasn't it? Emily fell back to the floor, then suddenly let out a twisted laugh. So, in your last life the same thing happened to you too, didn't it? You're just like me. Filthy, tainted. Who's better than who? We're both dirty. We're both disgusting. She kept repeating those words like she wanted to drag me down to her level to make herself feel less miserable by convincing herself we were the same. But the moment I spoke, her whole world shattered. I'm not, I said simply. Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. That's impossible. No woman could have gotten away from that. I gave her a faint, almost indifferent smile because I was crueler than they were. Emily stared at me, shaking her head. Then she burst out laughing hysterically. That's impossible. No woman could ever be crueler than a man. I didn't answer. I simply walked past her and left. In my previous life, Lucas Carter had drugged my drink and taken me to a hotel room where Mr. Xiao was waiting. But what they didn't know was that I had spent years building up my alcohol tolerance at social events, and I was already wary of their plans. The moment I entered that room, I turned on the voice recorder on my phone. When Mr. Xiao tried to force himself on me, I fought back with everything I had. Lucas stood by the door watching silently, pretending not to see. Mr. Xiao thought I was already trapped and defenseless, hurling insults as he tried to overpower me. But in that moment of chaos, I grabbed the wine bottle from the table and smashed it against his head. The glass shattered, leaving the jagged neck pointed directly at his throat. "Take one more step," I hissed, "and I'll kill you." Mr. Xiao snarled, his voice shaking. "If you kill me, you'll destroy your own life too." "Then we die together," I said coldly. Maybe it was because I looked completely unhinged. But in the end, he didn't have the courage to test me. He froze and I walked out of that room alive. The reason I still allowed Lucas to lead me into that trap, even after I suspected him, was because I needed that investment. I had no other options left. That was the last desperate move I could make to survive. Fortunately, I won that gamble. Thanks to the recording, Mr. Xiao eventually agreed to invest in our company. It stabilized soon after and business began to flourish. Emily, on the other hand, never had the courage to walk away. She couldn't bear to give up the investment she had sacrificed everything for. So she stayed trapped, blackmailed, manipulated, and as the saying goes, no secret stays hidden forever. Before long, rumors about her and Mr. Xiao spread everywhere. Her reputation was destroyed, and people whispered behind her back wherever she went. My parents were completely disappointed in her. They said she had embarrassed them in front of their friends. People are like that. They turned their backs on Emily and started cozying up to me instead. Meanwhile, my relationship with Ethan grew stronger than ever. One day, he even publicly announced that he was giving me half of his company's shares. Every evening after work, he came straight home. He stopped attending business parties or networking events, and there wasn't a single woman anywhere near him. To everyone else, he was cold and distant, but when he looked at me, there was nothing but warmth and affection in his eyes. Once again, I became the woman everyone envied. People came to me asking for my secret, how I managed to make my husband love me so much to the point he couldn't live without me. A month later, Ethan and I attended an industry summit. That's where we ran into Emily and Lucas again. They were there too. Emily no longer looked arrogant or confident. Her face was pale and covered in bruises. The layer of foundation on Emily's face couldn't hide the bruises beneath. People around her whispered and sneered, but she kept her composure, smiling and chatting as if nothing had happened. Only when her eyes met mine did her expression turn cold, like she was looking at a stranger. She brushed past me without a word. Naturally, I didn't greet her either. What I didn't expect was that she had secretly drugged my drink and sent someone to lead Ethan away. By the time I started feeling dizzy, Emily had already dragged me upstairs. "Lily, don't blame me," she whispered near my ear, her tone trembling with bitterness. "Why does everything good belong to you while all the pain falls on me? Mr. Jiao said if I help him get you, he'll let me go. Just don't resist. All you need to do is sleep for a while." Emily placed me on the bed and hurried out of the room. I fought to stay conscious and barely managed to open my eyes, only to see a large, bloated figure walking toward me. Mr. Jiao. As he stepped closer, I fumbled through my purse and pulled out the small fruit knife Ethan used to carry to harm himself. When Mr. Xiao reached for me, I snapped fully awake and drove the blade into his palm. He screamed in pain, clutching his bleeding hand. "A woman like you? How the hell do you have a knife?" I dropped to the floor and slashed a shallow cut across my own arm. The sting jolted me awake. Stumbling toward the door, I ran out of the room. But before I could get far, someone grabbed me. I struggled violently until a familiar voice said, "Lily, it's me." I looked up and saw Ethan's face, pale with worry. Only then did I relax before everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. Ethan was sitting beside me, his hand gripping mine tightly. Every time I moved, he woke instantly and ran to call the nurse. According to her, he'd been by my side the entire time, giving me medicine and refusing to let go of my hand. I reached out and gently stroked his hair. "Don't worry," I said softly. I'm fine now, aren't I? Ethan's voice was low, trembling with suppressed rage. Just the thought of that man trying to touch you makes me want to cut his hands off. So what then? I teased quietly. Are you saying no man should ever touch me again? Of course not, he said, tightening his arms around me possessively. Lily belongs only to me. I couldn't help but laugh. But earlier at the conference, didn't you shake hands with a few women? Should I be angry too? I was joking, but to my surprise, Ethan nodded seriously. You're right, he said. Lily cut my hand as punishment. Then he actually handed me the knife. When I didn't move, a faint sadness crossed his face. You won't do it? Is that because you don't love me? I touched other women's hands. Doesn't that make you angry? I stared at him speechless, then sighed. You're insane. The next day, I heard from one of the security guards what had really happened after I disappeared. Ethan had gone mad searching for me. He tore through the entire conference venue, almost causing the event to be shut down. When he finally found me in that upstairs room, Emily tried to stop him, and he kicked her so hard she flew against the wall. He then carried me out himself and took me to the hospital, ordering his men to beat all three of them, Emily, Lucas, and Mr. Shao, within an inch of their lives. If the event organizers hadn't intervened, the situation might have spiraled out of control. Emily and I ended up in the same hospital. When I recovered, I went to visit her once. She was lying in bed, too weak to get up. Looking at me, her eyes filled with resentment. Seeing me like this, you must feel so proud, don't you? I sat down on the sofa across from her. Everything that's happened to you is nothing but the result of your own choices. Emily let out a broken laugh, her voice trembling. I don't understand. We were born from the same parents, raised in the same house. So why does everything you do turn out perfectly, while everything I touch ends in ruin? It's not fair. Why is life so unfair? Life isn't unfair to you, I said softly. You were wrong from the start. The problem isn't what you choose. It's who is making those choices. Emily gave a cold, bitter chuckle. So you're saying I'm not as brave as you? I shook my head gently. No. Your biggest mistake was always thinking you could rely on someone else. You always wanted to get what you desired without ever learning how to stand on your own. But every gift life offers comes with a price. You can't have everything. Greed always demands payment in return. The one who put you in this situation was never me. Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. You, she choked out. But I had already stood up and walked away without looking back. Behind me, her voice broke into a near hysterical scream. You're lying. I didn't lose to you. You're lying. After I was discharged from the hospital, Ethan became even more protective of me. He blamed himself for everything that had happened, refusing to let me out of his sight, as though being near me could somehow make up for it. According to my father, after Emily left the hospital, Lucas Carter divorced her. Lately, he'd been chasing after the daughter of a newly rich family. Meanwhile, Emily had fallen apart. She kept muttering over and over that she wasn't wrong, that she hadn't lost. My parents didn't know what else to do, and eventually had her committed to a psychiatric hospital. As for Ethan, he didn't let Mr. Shao off easily either. Within a month, Ethan's people had completely ruined Zhao's company, leaving him drowning in debt and living like a fugitive. Not long after, Zhao was arrested for robbery and involuntary manslaughter. Then one day I saw Emily's name on the news again. Somehow, she had escaped from the psychiatric hospital. She showed up at Lucas Carter's wedding, knife in hand, and stabbed him to death right there at the ceremony. When the police arrested her, she kept murmuring, "It's all her fault. All because of her." Because of her mental condition, Emily was never convicted. But for the rest of her life, she would remain locked away in that hospital. When my mother heard the news, she changed her phone number and called me, crying hysterically. She said that from now on she would have no one else to rely on but me. I listened quietly, answered a few perfunctory words, and hung up. They raised me, so of course I would repay that debt one day. But if they were expecting love or affection from me, they would be disappointed. Those were things I had never been given, not even as a child. That winter I became pregnant. When Ethan found out, he was so overjoyed he nearly jumped for joy, but hesitated to touch me, afraid he might hurt me. In the end, I was the one who reached out first, wrapping my arms around him. Only then did he grin, lift me in his arms and spin me around in pure happiness. 9 months later, we welcomed a beautiful baby girl into the world. Ethan's parents wanted to visit their granddaughter, but we declined. Ethan gazed at our daughter, his eyes soft and full of love. "Lily," he said quietly, "I'll do everything I can to be a good father." I smiled, brushing my fingers against our child's tiny hand. "We will," I whispered. "We may have never known what a parent's love feels like, but our daughter, she'll be the happiest child in the world."